Hey, everybody, it's your girl, Author Doc B. She's in the building, and we have a special treat for you. We got our friend, our brother, Dr. Lawrence Bryant. He's back. Oh, my goodness. Let me see. The topic is going to knock you off your feet. Thank you all for joining. Please click like and share. He is backstage waiting to make his presentation. Miss Interest, to come on in so he can do his presentation. But y'all know I get so excited. He's focusing tonight on diversity, equity, or is that equality? Diversity, equity, and inclusion transformative strategies. What that mean? You're going to sit back, relax, and enjoy the show because he's going to give it to you tonight. He is from Atlanta, Georgia, and he is a doctor. Yes, he has his doctorate's degree, okay? And he has agreed to become my co host. So I cannot wait to stop doing all the work alone. But without any further ado, we're just going to bring him on. We do not want him to wait backstage. Hi, Dr. Lawrence.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you just fine.
Great.
Can you hear us?
Absolutely, every word.
Please click like and share. Thank you all for joining. Okay, let me see who's on. I like to look at the audience all the time first. I really do. So how you doing tonight?
I'm doing absolutely phenomenal. It's
All
a
right.
great day, very productive day. Just, you know, really finished grading my last paper today and
Mhm.
submitted the grades. My
Nice.
students did really well, so I'm happy with that.
Oh,
And now I'm ready to, as Whitney Houston would say, I'm ready to exhale.
hello, somebody.
Experience the fullness of the holiday. And I must say that the holiday, particularly Christmas, is
Hmm.
just my favorite holiday.
Ain't that
And
something?
it is my favorite holiday because it reminds me of family and how my parents during Christmas
Mhm.
just they were just so phenomenal. Their
Uh-huh.
love poured out. I remember my mom, she made sure everything was a surprise. We didn't stop, or at least I didn't stop. I
Mhm.
didn't know that Santa didn't come down the chimney for real until I was about 8 or 9 years old, when I stayed up one night and I said, I'm gonna wait until that man comes down that chimney. I don't care how tired I get. And
That's
I
something.
swear this night I did not sleep all night. And then I heard my mother come into my room, go into the closet and pull some
And
packages out.
Paul,
And I said to myself, you mean I've been believing in Santa Claus all of this time? And it really was my mom. And so,
ain't that
but they
something?
just were just so phenomenal. And so I just love that holiday the best.
Yeah, awesome, awesome, awesome. So what you got tonight? I get so
Well,
tongue tied. I get so excited, so happy, so tongue tied, so all these things. We've been getting some really good views and reviews, and people are calling and they're saying, where'd you meet him at, and all this kind of stuff. My friend did a WhatsApp. The WhatsApp. They said, could you please send us the link on WhatsApp? Because the second show I forgot to send it, but the first show I did send it. But then I can still send it later on. See, that's the beauty of streaming live. That's why I love live streaming with podcasts instead
yes.
of the whole setup with a producer. I used to have all that at the beginning. It was very costly. This is cost effective. You're still getting your message out to the community, right?
Mhm.
And so tell us, what are you going to share with us tonight? What's going on?
Well, we're going to be talking about diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I'd like to discuss it, from an experiential perspective, as
Mhm.
well as from just an evidence based perspective in
Mhm.
terms of what we can expect in terms of diversity, equity, inclusion. It seems that many organizations, many groups now are moving diversity, equity, inclusion, and developing committees that are specifically focused in this area.
Mhm.
We've got organizations now that are hiring directors of diversity, equity, inclusion. So we need to know what that really means, and also what we can expect. How can we operationalize this when we talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion? Because, as a country in the United States, when we look at issues around racism, when we look at issues around job ability, as well as promotion, those kinds of things, we know that structurally this country really is embedded in race, and
Yeah.
race is pervasive. It's really sort of intersects in almost every single area of our society.
Yes.
So we need to begin to have conversations that have good outcomes, because we've been talking about this for a while. However,
Yeah, we have.
but I just need us to understand that we need to get comfortable with being uncomfortable when we talk about race, and not
Ooh.
shy away from it, because we're never going to move beyond some of the just disasters that we've
Mhm.
had in this country around race, around policing, around the criminal justice system, until we face it head on and call it what it is.
Yeah, that's true. And it's so much going on, so much racism. And I'll tell you something, since I've been here in Atlanta, I've encountered one incident in regards to, what did you just say, woman, to me? When I walked into a dentist and appeared to be in a state of desperation. Like, I hate the dentist because of what I've been through in my life with my addiction. So I expected warmth and I expected to be treated as such. Well, I got there 1 minute late because I didn't know where to park my car. And they said to me, "You cannot come into your appointment. We have to reschedule." And I thought, what's your late policy? My leadership hat just went right on. Can I see your manager? Can I see your policy? No? Okay. I'll just have a seat right here. Let me call my insurance company because I work for the state of Georgia and put in a complaint right now. And I think that having this conversation around what to do when racism is in place, when discrimination is in place, when all these things is happening. And here's another experience that I had. I was so glad when you talked about this diversity, equality, and listen, and the inclusion part. I've gotten many jobs because of this. I'm just gonna let you know right now, whether I was qualified for the job or not, because I am a Muslim educated Black woman and I dress like this, I got the job. But I found out once I got on the job that it wasn't only my education and work experience that got me the job. It's because I was Black. It was because I was Muslim. It was all these other things that I needed to be, and they didn't like me. They just needed it. You see? And then they want to say, "You want to be on our inclusion team? You want to be on a?" No, I do not, because it's not real. It's not authentic. It's not something that you're really trying to make a change. You're meeting agency needs to keep grant money, funding, and all these things. You need to show some diversity. But I like to see some authenticity when it comes to diversity. I want to feel welcomed and feel just as happy going to work as everybody else that's there going to work. You understand what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So when you talked about this transformative strategies, I'm like, oh, this is going to be good. Even for me, Doc B. needs to continue broadening her horizons, educating herself, staying on the side of good. You know what I'm saying? Because this diversity thing is just too much. And this is not only in the South. I'm talking about, I was living in Bucks County, Pennsylvania. Predominantly Bucks County, Pennsylvania. That's where I was living. And neighbors all around me. It was only 2 black neighbors. You know, and so, and as soon as you say diversity, people think black and white. They don't see the whole picture. They just see color. And I know you're getting ready to break it down. I'll be quiet because I can go on and on and on about this thing here. Someone in the audience says inclusion is being invited to the dance, being included in dancing with me at the dance. Oh, did you write that? Did you write that, Dr. Lawrence?
No, I didn't write that. I don't know who wrote it, but let me tell you, whoever wrote that is really onto something, because it's something about inclusion that's more than just a body in a place.
Yeah.
Here's what inclusion is. Inclusion is that I have a voice at the uppermost level in decisions that impact the organization and the population I'm serving. So I told you we were going to get deep.
Ooh, you better keep it simple. Come on, keep it simple.
I have a voice in the decisions that impact my community, that impact me, and that impact the environment that I work in.
Well, I've gotten let go because I said, what about me? Well, you didn't ask me.
Yes.
You didn't ask me. They said, well, this may not be a good fit for you. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's not. And I've never been afraid. I'll go right down the street and get a job. They're waiting for me. They're waiting for me. And I am very boisterous, but I'm very respectful at the same time when I choose to have a conversation with someone. I don't talk because I got a set of big, pretty lips. That part. I don't talk just because. I talk with substance, with validity. I talk because I have something to say. And that's how the Bring It to the Table got started. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you all for joining. Oh, she put her name. She said, oh, it's me. It's Cynthia. It's Cynthia who made that. She put her name over in the chat. Thank you all for joining. Please click like and share. I'm going to be quiet, but this is going to get really, really good. Cynthia, thank you for joining. Sierra Leone.
Tell Cynthia I said thank you for participating in the chat, and we'd like more. And I just want to add one thing that we're going to discuss, because this can get very murky, especially when you are a African American or a BIPOC person, and you are in organizations that the job that you do contributes to racism. And what do you do? When you know the policies that are in place are racist, but this is your job, this is your bread and butter. You can't just get all up in the supervisor's face and say, I'm not going to do this. So how do you navigate those feelings that the work that you are doing is also contributing to racist policies towards your own people?
Yeah.
That's difficult, but it's a reality.
Yeah, it is. It really happens. It really happens. All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming. You are listening to your host, author Doc B, and our soon-to-be co-host, Dr. Lawrence Bryant, who has given us nothing but love in the last 2 weeks, talking about HIV and AIDS. He broke us off starting December the 1st. And each week after that, going into the new year, we are going to have the launch the first Thursday in January. We're going to have a special guest on, so sit back and relax. I hope you enjoyed his presentation. 2 weeks in a row, we just becoming so more educated, and he's doing an outstanding job with educating our community. That's what this is all about, education, because we need things to change. We've been marching for years. Enough marching, okay? I'm not saying don't do it, but my goodness, we've been marching since the beginning of time, okay? So, all right, you want me to turn the slide?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
And so this next slide really is an overview of at least some of the domain areas that I want to talk about, particularly when we talk about examine strategies. So we want to examine ways that that work and that ultimately provide positive outcomes. What do I mean by that? That means we get results. We don't want to just engage in policies, engage in work and meetings just to meet. No, we want to make sure that at the end of the day we reap results, and that those results are measurable, that those results are part of data that's ongoing, that the results are part of an assessment program where we duplicate what we're doing well, and we look at the gaps along the way. But if we don't collect data, if we don't know who we have in our department and what the demographic is, how do we know what we need to change, what we need to work on, and what we need to get better? So we're going to talk a little bit about just some of those strategies. Also, we'll review and define, well, what do we mean by diversity, equity, and inclusion? Sort of operationalize that. And also describe just how important it is to integrate DEI into our work, into our family, and that we can begin to confront those times when issues around racism, issues around microaggression, that kind of thing, we begin to speak up against those things as opposed to just being silent. And also, we want to look at, and here it is, hold accountable our leaders.
Uh-oh. Watch
And
out now. Yeah.
I've been a respiratory therapist for 40 something years. So I've worked in many, many different large hospital healthcare institutions. And one of the things that, and I must say that this is a good thing, that now not only are we as staff evaluated, every year or twice a year on our performance, and oftentimes may get raises based on them. Now we also evaluate our leaders. They're not out of the ballpark. And so I think that's an important element when we're talking about diversity, equity, inclusion, because what that says is that we all can improve. We can all get better, but we all need to be held accountable for what we do or what we don't do.
Yeah.
And so hopefully we'll get a chance to cover all of that. But wherever we stop at today, I want to have a conversation again that's more than just surface words.
Okay. Well, you have people in here. You got Patricia Skinner is saying hello, good topic. You got Raheem Burton, that's my husband. Hi, honey. Salam alaikum. You got Tony Simmons is on. She's joining us. Thank you for joining, Tony. She's an author too. She's been on the show. She was my very first guest, actually. And then we have a couple of more people. Cynthia Rose, we said her. Rhonda Johnson, and then there's a couple more people. So thank you all for joining. Please share this topic. Share, just go to the bottom of your screen, click like and share. We would really appreciate your participating in that manner. The more the merrier. All right, next slide.
So when we look at this slide, again, we want to really take a deeper look at what we mean by equity, diversity, and inclusion. But if we can imagine a bowl of gumbo, and I don't know about you, I had a good bowl of gumbo just yesterday. I mean, one of them show enough bowls of gumbo, right?
Yeah, don't
So
start
delicious.
because,
But when you look at
oh
the
my gosh.
components of
Yeah.
gumbo,
Oh
the
God.
shrimp, the sausage, the different spices, they all culminate and
Mhm.
give their specific, they do their role, they do their job to make the overall gumbo delicious. But it takes each and every component in
Mhm.
order for the gumbo to have the kind of taste that it should. And that's what when I think about diversity,
Mhm.
that's what I think about. It's all of us have something to contribute. All
Yeah.
of us have a talent. It's up to our leaders to identify that talent and to
Mhm.
cultivate it and to hone it. It's nothing worse than being evaluated and the only thing that your leader says are the things that you got wrong.
Mhm. Okay.
Everybody has strengths and we have weaknesses. And when we can build on our strengths and
Mhm.
minimize and improve on our weaknesses, it ultimately works to make a much, much better organization, a much better
Yeah.
environment. So when each part of the gumbo is acknowledged and recognized,
Mhm.
that's where the flavor comes from. That's where the
Yes.
taste comes from. And
All right.
that's what when we're talking about diversity, equity, inclusion, that's sort of the idea behind that. Next.
All right. So before we go along, oh my gosh, the you got somebody saying this is an amazing topic. Thank you for bringing this up. I feel like ASWB are racist in their practices of here it is, LMSW, LCSW exam results. And don't get me started with that, Sharifa. Thank you for bringing that up. I really do appreciate that. Please don't get me started. Thank you for joining, Miss Bonner. I see all of you. Tony, hello again. I had my own personal experience with being tested and the way that I had been tested and my results to become uh, credentialed in Pennsylvania first. And then the same thing happened when I got here. So I agree with you, Sharifa. All right, I'm going to go to the next slide, but wow, this is something. Okay.
And that's a little bit hard to see, but this is a wheel of diversity. And when you said that diversity, equity, and inclusion is so much more than just about race, it's about the whole person. It's about the intersectionality. And that
Mm,
intersectionality is what that person brings to the table when you were looking at them. So, sure, you're looking at the color of their skin, but there's so much more than that. So, when we look at this
yes.
wheel, and this was adopted from Marilee and Rossner, I think it's a great example of the expansion when we talk about diversity. So, there are four
Mhm.
areas here. One is personality,
Uh-huh.
circle. Then you have internal mechanisms, external mechanisms, organizational mechanisms, and error mechanisms.
Mhm.
So I'm
Mhm.
going to break each one of these down because these all either directly or indirectly impact the person. So you can see it's so much more than just about race. So let's look at the internal. When
Okay.
you look at things like age, okay, age is an element of diversity. Race, and these are sort of traditional things that we all know about. Sexual orientation, ethnicity, national origin. So these are some of the more traditional kinds of things that we think about when we think about diversity. But when we look at some of the external factors, we expand this to things such as social economic status, education, interest, geographic location, experiences, family, state, and family size. So these are some of the more external things that impact the individual as well. Then we have organizational. And oftentimes we don't think about organization when we think about diversity, equity, inclusion, but certainly the type of organization, where the organization is located, the function of the organization. So is the organization a higher education institute? Is it a healthcare organization? What type of organization is also important, and the function of that organization. Also, the management status and structure. Very important when we're talking about organizations. There are some organizations, Felicia, that have such hierarchy that everybody seems to, they're all saying that we have all chiefs and no Indians. There are a lot of organizations that are top heavy, and one is organizations of higher learning, higher institutions. And so they all impact the diversity, equity, and inclusion. And lastly, you see era. And you might not think of an era as something that is part of this equation. But when you look at, for example, this era, what's the big thing that's happened in this era that's impacted all of us?
COVID.
COVID. Come on, COVID. It's impacted how we work. It's impacted where we work. It's impacted who gets to stay home and work and who must be on the front lines and work. And so we cannot divorce ourselves from the fact that all of these factors contribute to that intersectionality that I talked about. And so again, when we're dealing with people, it's more than just about race. And the other thing that's here that's important as well is issues around disability. We oftentimes don't think about that. That oftentimes sort of gets, sort of overlooked, but that's just as important as any of the other ones, race, age, and so forth. Can we go to the next slide?
Sure. Oh my goodness, all those comments. Can you see the comments as well?
No, I can't see the comments, so you have to share them with me.
Yeah, they're talking. They're in here. They're very interactive, and I appreciate all of you. Somebody all the way at the top here was a really good comment. Says, "So what does one do when they recognize this?" And he's going to get to that. I'm almost sure. This man, especially invisible disabilities, and then says, which also breeds arrogance. Boy, they're hot tonight. And then it says how we treat people
Yes.
we work with, and
Yes.
somebody saying we are created different so that we can learn from one another. Diversity challenges biases. And then they saying, this is what the audience is saying tonight. Being a divine human being will always supersede race and color. I love it. I love it. I love it. And so my nephew is here, and he says that his grandma makes the best gumbo.
Oh, really? See, y'all gonna make me go here and make me some gumbo tomorrow.
She makes the best gumbo, and she passed away. That's why I had a moment just now when I had to get off the screen because I had a moment just now when you talked about the gumbo. I did. This is like the first real full year that we've been without my mom, and gumbo was everything, and Christmases too.
Yes.
She loved it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So when I saw that, I was like, oh my! I tried to hold it back, but I couldn't.
And it's okay. It's okay. And one thing about allowing people to be their authentic self.
Yeah.
And acknowledging and respecting them and their feelings, because as I talked about Christmas, I realized that most of my family is gone.
Mm-hmm.
My mom is gone. Mm-hmm. My dad is gone. My grandmother, my grandfather. The only thing that I have left are cousins, first cousins. And the second generations, I don't know that well, but I'm just so glad that I can stand on the shoulders.
Yes, you are.
Of my ancestors. And and we say this all the time in recovery circles. Sometimes we don't get the lessons that our foremothers and forefathers did for us for many, many years. It was many years before I could appreciate why my father whooped my butt when at 13,
Right.
At 13 years old, when I come hopping in the house at 2 o'clock in the morning, I couldn't understand it.
Mhm.
I'm six. What? I was about 5 feet 9, 6 feet then. I'm 13. I can handle myself. He says, "Well,
Mhm.
see if you can handle this belt." Okay, but I
Okay, that
appreciate
part.
I appreciate that so much now, and yeah, we stand on the shoulders of those people.
That's
We really,
something.
really do.
That's
Yes.
something. All right. You want me to turn?
Yeah,
Let's
and
see.
so let's just dig a little bit deeper into let's operationalize what we mean by diversity, equity, inclusion. So we talked a little bit about the gumbo. We talked about diversity. So again, I want to reiterate that having represented number of people of color in a workplace is critical. That's important, but it's not enough. And
Mm.
you sort of explain that very, very well. Not only we don't need placeholders.
Come on.
We need people who are included in the process. And I must say, in respiratory therapy, I think we do a great job in terms of inclusion. It used to be that on, for example, day shift and night shift, we all had supervisors, and the supervisors dictated everything. And there was conflict a lot of the time because staff didn't get along with the supervisors, staff didn't have an input. But we changed that so that instead of having that like this central supervisor, the
Mhm.
staff took turns supervising. And we
Mm,
didn't call
that's
them supervisors. We didn't
nice.
call them supervisors, but we called them lead. But
Yes.
they serve that same role.
Yeah.
So staff got to see what management went through, what it takes to run a shift,
Wow.
what it takes to and when and mostly people who wanted to do this wasn't were allowed to do it, but there were some very good people who sort of took on this role frequently. And so,
Mhm.
for example, when there's a new piece of equipment that came along, rather than the supervisor saying, "Well, we're going to use that ventilator, we're going to use that piece of equipment," no, we asked the staff who are in the trenches,
Mhm.
evaluate this, give us feedback, tell us
Yeah.
what works. Tell us what don't.
Don't.
Having
Mhm.
the your staff and the people that we work with involved in the process ultimately makes for a better outcome. And so when we talk about diversity, again, it's more than just having a variety of different people within the organization or the group, but also respecting and valuing all of them.
That's
Okay.
awesome. Oh my gosh, I have to read this. So Sharifa says, it is really a pleasure to experience Dr. Lawrence Bryant and his God-given brain understanding of what's going on in life, period. That's amazing.
Thank
Somebody
you.
else said, to want to become a leader, you must be a good student.
Yes, absolutely.
Wow. And
Absolutely.
then they're
So
supporting
let's
it. Wow, that's crazy. This is good. Good stuff.
look at this next slide.
Okay.
So when you look at this slide, actually the next one, yeah. Yeah. So when you look at this slide, this is very, very interesting because this is the equity piece.
Mm-hmm.
And let me just make very, very clear. Equity does not equal equality.
Oh, and I messed that up in the presentation. I said equality and equity. I kept getting them confused.
Yes.
Come on, clear it
Equity
up
is
for us.
different
Clear it up
than
for us.
we talk about equality. Let me tell you the difference. Look at this picture. So
I'm
you've
looking.
got 6 individuals and you
Mhm.
got two, let's call them apple trees, if you will.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
And you see when we talk about equality, you see the three bodies. So you see one is very short, the other one is sort of average, and the tall one is able to reach up and pick the apple.
Uh-huh.
So that's equality. So what equality says is that everybody's going to get the same thing. When you look at the boxes
Oh,
that
we're
they're
all equal.
standing, they're all equal. But
Got it.
what is it about this that is should be questionable? What is it about that's questionable?
On the second set,
No, we're still on the first one. We're still on equality.
Okay, so what's the question? What's questionable about
What,
equality?
what's happening with these three individuals when we just look at equality?
Okay, so they're all on the same level of the stool or the crate or whatever they're standing on.
Well, who gets the apple?
The the taller
The
one.
tallest one,
The
yes.
taller
But
one.
what about the middleman? He's not tall enough to get the apple. The short man, he's not tall enough
Right,
to
right,
get the
right,
apple.
right.
So when we talk about equality, the outcome is insufficient. So it's not really about
Mm,
equality, it's about equity. So when you look
gotcha.
at the second set of boxes, you see that the tall one has the one box, but the middle person has a taller box to
They
stand
gave them
on so
two.
that
I see it.
he can get the apple.
Uh-huh.
And
And
you
then the
see
next one has three.
the
I
shortest one,
got it.
or the one that has some kind of disability
Mm-hmm.
needs extra. He needs extra help.
Mm, gotcha.
But the outcome is on this second one, all three are able to eat the apple from the fruit tree. So
OMG.
equity is concerned with outcomes.
Outcomes.
Outcome.
Gotcha.
The outcome, I want an apple. I'm hungry. I haven't eaten in a day. I want me an apple. And so, whatever you have to do to allow me to get that apple, then that's what we do. And so, when we are looking at conceptualizing equity and health equity, particularly
Mm-hmm.
as it affects our community, these are the kinds of things that we want to be concerned
You
about.
want us
Next
to be
slide.
concerned about, boy, that's amazing. You blowing it up. I'm telling you, you got to see that. The chat, they are chatting away.
Wow. Okay. Let them
They
chat. Come
are
on. Come
chatting
on.
away. I'm telling you, they chatting away. Somebody said freedom, equality, justice are valuable, vulnerable principles that promotes. Thank you, my two doctors. And then somebody say there are different. They were trying to figure out the different bricks and the platforms and stuff. And then it says executive leadership must value fairness.
Right.
Ooh,
And understand what fairness is.
yeah.
Because
Opportunity
what's fair
is.
to one individual may not be fair to another individual.
I've experienced that. And somebody said, yes, yes, yes. They're going crazy in the chat. Look, it says opportunity is available and reachable for everyone.
Yes. Yes. Everybody
I think
deserves
they're
a piece
getting
of
it.
the pie.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody. And so
You're
when we
getting
talk about inclusion here,
it. Mm-hmm.
listen to this. Inclusion centers people of color as
Mm,
leaders and decision makers, in addition to ensuring diverse representation. And that's
nice.
sort of what we brought home. Does your leadership reflect the population that you serve? And here's an example. We talk about this
Ooh,
all the
wait.
time. Being assistant professor at a major university that's over 30,000 students here in the Southeast.
Mm-hmm.
And I tell you, I've never experienced as much racism as I have as a Black doctor in academia.
Mm,
And and I taught in respiratory therapy for a number of years in a respiratory therapy program. So they had a doctor, master's degrees in respiratory therapy, as well as bachelor's in respiratory therapy.
mm-hmm.
And the program itself was very, very diverse. We had people from all over the world: Chinese, African, Indian, Russian. I mean, from all over the world. So it's very diverse. And the university itself, very, very diverse, in smack dab in the middle of Atlanta. But
Wow.
on graduation day, when you have got an audience of graduates, thousands
Mm-hmm.
and thousands of people, diverse from all over the world, when you look on the stage at
Oh
the
my goodness.
administrators and managers, so on the stage were the department chairs, were the deans, were the associate deans, and all of the administrators. And when I look on that stage, I may have seen out of 100 people, 100 administrators, I may have seen two or three black people,
Two blacks. Yeah.
two or three
Yeah.
black persons.
I've
So
seen
when we
that
talk
before.
about, does the administrators who are making a decision for these students, do they reflect the population that they serve? And if they don't, then we have a problem. And then this university touted itself as one of the most diverse universities in the country.
Mm-hmm.
Well, just because the student population is diverse, who's making the decision? Is that group also diverse? But let me just tell you this: the good news is, just maybe a few months ago, I found out that this same university
Mm-hmm.
now has a black president.
No way.
A black president. I almost fell off my seat.
Wow.
So
Well, looks
I don't
like
know
they're
if any of
going
that
for
has.
the, looks like inclusion is taking place.
Well, I don't know to what extent that is because I'm no longer at the
Right.
university, so I don't really know. But I
Right.
certainly know that that's a start.
Yeah, there's a start. I felt
Absolutely.
that way when we got our first black president. So you want me
Yes.
to go to the next slide? There
Sure.
are people in there. Oh boy. Uh-oh, here we go. Leadership checks the box, but doesn't always have those hard conversations, like what you said. Cynthia said that. Raheem said, talked about the vulnerability and the principles that promote uh leadership. Uh and okay, so those were the two that I didn't get to. But I'm going to go to the next slide. Wow, this is really good. I love it.
So I want you to look at this image.
That's my girlfriend. Look at my cousin. Go ahead.
Beautiful, beautiful black woman. And
Yeah.
Alice Walker, I tell you, she's one of my favorite people. And she says, I think it annoys God if you walk past the color purple in a field somewhere and don't notice it.
Mm.
It has far-reaching implications for what we're talking about.
My.
Even the example now of the many directors and producers who are now putting out movies like Black Panther.
Oh, yeah.
And the popularity,
Mm-hmm.
the dollar amount that's
Mm-hmm.
being made off of Black produced and Black directed movies. So what you can see is all of this talent throughout the years basically have been circumvented. And this whole
Mm.
idea that's been put out that Black movies don't sell, that
Mm.
Blacks don't really want other Black movies, it's just not true. And we know that now there's a variety. We even have Black television stations now
Oh,
that are
yeah.
very popular.
Oh, yeah.
And
Yeah,
so,
you were. And speaking of that, I can make the announcement since you said that. This is the opportune time to say that, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining again. You are listening to author Doc B, your host, along with the soon to be co host, Dr. Lawrence Bryant. And I want you all to, when you get a chance, to go on to YouTube. And Dr. Bryant has been featured with the Black Doctoral Network. And you'll see him speaking there as well. And I mean, I watched it last night, the whole thing, and he got down to some really good questions. And he and you were transparent and everything. So if you're enjoying this tonight, please let's congratulate him and give him some attention and go and look on YouTube at the Black Doctoral Network. That's the BDN. Okay, it's on right now.
let me
It
just say a
only went
little.
up. It only went up yesterday,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. And let me just say about the Black Doctoral Network, I've been with them for about 10 years. And I thought it was such a magnificent organization that helps other up and coming Black scholars. Now, you don't even have to be working on a doctorate, but just some kind of education endeavor. It just provides a plethora of support, of opportunities, of career choices, of research endeavors. I've presented on navigating the dissertation process and the thesis process for particularly African Americans and the barriers that oftentimes we face. And I tell you, it just is a phenomenal organization. So just go on the website. You can just Google Black Doctoral Network. It'll come right up.
Yeah, you're the first article there. They posted it 9 hours ago.
Absolutely, absolutely.
All right. Let
But
me go
it's
to
not, and I can't say this enough. It's nothing like reaching back and helping those that are in need, because somebody helped us. Like, I never will forget my father.
Mhm.
And before he passed, we had gotten very, very, very close. Once I got over my stuff, we were very, very close. But he always told me, he said, Larry, you can do anything that you put your mind to.
Anything.
And when everything's are difficult, when everything's are challenging, I hold on to that for dear life. And just the words of encouragement that we give people can help strengthen them. It's a thing with me that if you don't have anything to help a person or that's good that will strengthen them, don't do anything that will detract from who they are.
Absolutely.
Particularly the words that we say are very, very important. So when we talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion, we're also talking to ourselves.
Yeah.
And we'll get into that a little bit more, but really, really uplifting and supporting people and encouraging them. And that really does go a long way for helping people to reach their dreams and their hopes.
Yes, it does.
And we can go on to the next slide and really
Call to action.
Yes, begin to just buckle up our seatbelts, put on our gloves, and let's just start this uncomfortable work. Look at the next slide, and let's talk about race. And hopefully, did you check to see if this video would work?
For this one right here, I believe it does. So this is a video, right? I'm clicking on the video. So let's see. Yeah. I don't know. Let me see. Nope. No, but I can bring up something separate. Go ahead. You keep talking and let me work on doing that.
So Michelle Alexander, and she's got a book out called The New Jim Crow. Okay. And if you want to go to YouTube, you just go to YouTube and just put her.
Yeah, I was going to do that.
And you'll see the picture.
And bring up The New Jim Crow. What's her name?
Michelle Alexander. Okay. She does a phenomenal job at looking at race and looking at, particularly as it relates to the criminal justice system. And particularly around substance use. And so when we look at race, we're really looking at it from a systemic perspective. And what that means is it's not just about individuals. It's about systems that are in place that continually perpetuate racism. So those systems could be our educational system. It could be our religious organizations. It could be our medical facilities. Whatever structure is within society really has racism embedded in it. And it, shows its face where we live, where we work, where our children play, where we gather in community, and ultimately results in health disparities, or social, as we call it, social determinants of health. And the new director of the CDC really has brought this to highlight in saying that racism is a public health epidemic. And basically, she says that African Americans suffer, particularly African Americans, Latinos, Alaskan Indians, Natives, suffer racism from a structural perspective. And I think Michelle does a phenomenal job of really setting this up. And while we're showing it, have you got the video?
Yeah, I found it. I'm sharing my screen now.
Okay. And I want you all to listen to the video. And I want you all we really want to have a rich discussion in the chat around the points that she brings out, the highlights that she brings, even if you have to write it, but listen to what she says. How long is that?
It's this is the one though, right?
I don't.
You see it at the bottom.
How long is it?
What is it? Looks like it's.
No, I think it's this one at the.
Thank you so
You
much
want me to
for
scroll down some?
having me here today.
That's not
It's
the one,
really
because
an
that's a
honor
whole
to
hour.
be here, and I'm thrilled to
You
see
just want a clip?
so many of you here.
No, see if
eager
you can
to
find
join
the one
in
that looks like the picture.
meaningful dialogue, meaningful conversation
That's
about
not
this
the one.
system of mass incarceration in the United States. Decimated so many of our communities, destroyed so many families, and literally turned back the clock on racial progress in the United States. It seems fitting and despair.
Did you want me to take
the society ended the war on poverty,
a little bit of what she has to say, because this is a whole
employment
hour, but she has one
housing discrimination, denial of the right to vote, exclusion from jury service, suddenly legal.
Mm-hmm.
As a criminal, you have scarcely more rights and arguably less respect than a Black man living in Alabama at the height of Jim Crow.
Mm-hmm.
We have not ended racial caste in America. We have merely redesigned it. But it took me a while to get to that place. And like a lot of people, I was in deep denial. Even as I was working as a social justice advocate, as a civil rights lawyer, I thought I knew what was going on. I was disturbed. I was even appalled by the high numbers of Black men cycling in and out of our prisons and jails, but I thought, well, that can be explained by the high rates of poverty and bad schools and broken homes, the legacy of inequality. Somehow it didn't occur to me that Black folks have been poor for a long, long time and uneducated for a long, long time, but nothing like the system of mass incarceration had ever existed before.
My Lord.
Somehow it was easy for me to rationalize what I saw because of the prevailing myths about the system of mass incarceration that are fed to us in countless ways, that I was fed in many respects in law school, and that were fed through the media.
Mm-hmm.
But I had one experience that finally began to open my eyes, that shook me to my core. It involved a young African-American man who was about 19 years old, who walked into my office and forever changed the way I viewed not only our criminal justice system, but how I viewed myself as a civil rights lawyer and advocate. And at the time, I was directing the Racial Justice Project for the ACLU in California, and we had just launched a major campaign against racial profiling by the police. We called it the DWB campaign, or the Driving While Black or Brown campaign. And we had created a hotline number for people to call if they believed they had been stopped or targeted by the police on the basis of race. And we put this hotline number up on billboards in Oakland and communities like San Jose and Sacramento, urging people to call the hotline number if they believe that they've been stopped or targeted by the police on the basis of race. And in fact, within the first few minutes that we announced this hotline number on the evening news,
so good.
we received thousands of
calls. We're going to revisit this again, but we have like 5 minutes left, right?
3.
Oh, is there anything in the chat?
Yeah. Oh, is it? It's a whole bunch of stuff in there. I can't even read it all. It's so much. They saying, okay, so people in general take the science of spectrum for granted, they said, like it was created for or not, or for not, for nothing. I don't know what that means, but Black Faces in High Places, Dr. Randall Picnic and Jeffrey Robinson is a must read, they're saying. I'm reading it now, and it is full of Black CEO and their own experiences. I call that the help we've been waiting for. And they're like, absolutely. And they're talking among one another. It's just a lot. It's too much.
Absolutely. I think
But
that
we can always go back and read it, though.
yes. And the new Jim Crow by Michelle Alexander.
That's
And
amazing.
I'm not an avid reader. Look, I read so many papers, student
Right.
papers. A lot of times I don't want to sit down and read a book, but I do use the audio version. I have Audible. And while I'm at the gym or if I'm someplace else, I listen to it. And I tell you, this book has changed my life. And on some subsequent slides, I also have a variety of different other resources and must reads, because we've got to educate ourselves. We've got to know where we came from, but also we've got to know when racist policies and racist behaviors are impacting our lives.
Absolutely.
And so she just makes this very, very clear. And I think when we regroup again, that we'll start with Michelle Alexander and how she just unfolds this so poignantly.
Yeah, that was absolutely amazing. I really do appreciate you coming on tonight. Can't wait until the next time. Ladies and gentlemen, you heard it here with the girl host, Orthodox B. Diversity, equity, and inclusion, transformative strategies. We're
Part
going to go
one.
to that's part one. And so the finale is next week. This is the finale before we go back to January, where Dr. Lawrence is going to be, Dr. Bryant is going to be joining me as a co-host. I'm taking classes and everything. I'm going to be a great speaker on the podcast. It's next level stuff, messing with Dr. Lawrence Bryant. Listen, I'm in for a treat, and so are you. Thank you for joining. We will see you all. Peace.
And don't forget to share my email address, lbryan61@kennesaw.edu. And I have a link also to my LinkedIn page and my signature page. So yeah, I'd like to hear from you all. I really would.
Yep. And you can, there it is. He gave it to you. So all you have to do is look him up or hit me up, because most of y'all know me anyway. I'll be happy to pass him along. Just don't steal him, because I need him for now in my life. Okay. Love you all.
There's enough for me to go around.
Good night. Thank you for joining, and we will see you all again next week. Oh, it was so many comments. Oh gosh, I'm gonna go back and read them all, y'all. Thank y'all for coming. See y'all next week, same time, 8 p.m. Thursday night. You don't want to miss part 2, and this is going to be the finale that's going to bring us into 2023. Thank you for coming. Good night. God bless.